So hi guys, we're doing trigonometry. So today we're gonna go through cosine, sine, tangent of pi over 6, pi over 3, and as well as pi over 4. Okay? So right now we're gonna explain this circle right here. So you're gonna represent an angle, right? So because pi over 6, pi over 3, pi over 4, pi anything to do with pi, that has to do with radian, right? The radian mode that you see here. And let me just come over here and just from radians to degree, right? From radians to degree, you're gonna check out 2 pi, that's your radian, right? And how do you translate that to degree? That's gonna be 360 degree, right? So half of that, which is pi, because 2 pi equals to 360, so 1 pi, which is half of 2 pi, is 180, right? 180 degree. Okay, so you can use 180 degree or your radian mode, which is the values that has to do with pi, right? So you use pi, or either you use pi or you use the degree, right, to represent angles that you're gonna plug into our trigonometry functions, right? So we're just dealing with x. You can see like because your x right now has been replaced before, right? Before it was looking like x and y, right? That you got your x and y right here. But now we're gonna after we explain the angle, we're gonna plug the x, which is the angle represented by theta, that can be plugged into your trigonometry function, right? That's the ultimate goal. But right now we're just explaining the concept right here. We're just explaining the concept just to know, okay, so if we have this, what's our sine, what's our cosine, what's our tangent? If pointed to different quadrant right here, right? So just for review, you probably learned this in algebra 2. You start from your x-axis, right, on the right, and you are going through the quadrants, right? The quadrant 1, which is right here. Imagine you have a ray right here, right? You have a radius right here, and you're going through the circle, going through the whole circle. So you come over here, your ray point to here, right? You can point to here, and you go into the first quadrant first, right? Second quadrant, third quadrant, and fourth quadrant, and going back to the original, your starting point, which is right here. Okay, that's your ray right here. Okay, and so what you're gonna do is you want to calculate the angle. So you got your angle right here, and because you draw a line down to your x-axis, or you can draw it to the y-axis, but we're looking at the x-axis, right? You're gonna form a right angle right here. So this is your hypotenuse, and this is your opposite side and the adjacent side, right? And then you can calculate the cosine, sine, and tangent. So we are trying to get, we're saying this is a unit circle, but it doesn't matter about the length. It's not about that. You can make it 2, right? You can make it 3. Your ray can be as long as 3, 4. It doesn't matter, as long as it started from the 0 point, right? And as long as you are drawing a circle around it, right? But the reason to use 1 is because it's easier that way. Once you get the fraction of cosine, right? Cosine is represented by a fraction, right? And sine is represented by a fraction. Tangent is 2, right? Y over this opposite over adjacent, right? And cosine is what? The cosine will be this over this, which is adjacent over hypotenuse, and opposite over hypotenuse is sine, right? So it's a fraction, so it's a ratio essentially. So it doesn't matter if it's the length of it. Once you take a quotient, once you divide that, it will become a fraction, and it doesn't matter anymore. The value you put in front of it, well, whether it's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, you will be divided, right? You'll be divided. If this gets longer, your opposite side will get longer and your adjacent side will get longer. Let's say you have a 2 right here, and you draw your opposite side all the way down to form a right angle on your x-axis, then your opposite side will get longer too. And once you take a fraction of that, then it doesn't matter. It's gonna form a fraction that is let's say you have a pi over 3. Your sine pi over 3 will have the same value, right? So that's the reason for using a unit circle, because that's just for convenience, right? Just for convenience, is trying to convey a concept. Okay, so it's all laid out here for you, but I'm gonna go into details now. Cosine pi over 3. So we have a pi over 3. This circle where the videos has drawn, right? Array right here, and it forms a pi over 3 angle together with the x-axis, right? So that will become pi over 3, and we want to find cosine pi over 3. So you're gonna use your 1, right? And you're gonna use your, because it's cosine, you're gonna use your adjacent. So in trigonometry, you have to remember even before in algebra 2, you're gonna remember your special angles. You're gonna remember your special angles, right? So pi over 3, which is 60 degree, and everything that has to do with 60 degree, you're gonna have 30 degree and 90 degree, right? That gives you the 180 that triangle needs. So right here, so pi over 3, okay, which is 180 divided by 3, and that equals 60. All right, so if you have 60 degree, you have 30 here, you have 90 here, so right across 30 is 1, right? Right across 60 is square root of 3, and right across the 90 you have a 2. So 1 to 2 to, okay, this is what we remember, square root of 3. 1 to 2 to square root of 3, and in the middle you have the ratio for what? The ratio for the hypotenuse, right? Hypotenuse. Okay, so this right here becomes really easy, because once you get the 60, this is 60, you know this is over 3, and you know this is 2, and you know this is 1, and I just want the cosine of this, right? Cosine of this angle. So which is 1 over 2, right? This is the cosine of that angle, which is 60 degrees, and this is our value. Okay, so cosine pi over 3 equals to 1 over 2, right? The adjacent over what? The adjacent over hypotenuse. Okay, so then we're gonna find out what is our sine pi over 3. Our sine pi over 3 will be square root of 3 divided by 2, right? Square root of 3 divided by 2. Oh, you might notice that I'm using 2, but again, I explained it before, the fraction doesn't matter, you got divided. Okay, so if you insist on using just 1, right? This divided by 2, and this divided by 2, and this divided by 2, right? So you get your unit circle right here using the hypotenuse, right? And your adjacent and your opposite sides, the length have been changed, right? The length has been changed proportionally, right? Proportionally. And so you're gonna use that. That's gonna be what? That's gonna be a sine over sine of pi over 3. That's the value. That's the value right there. Okay? And so we conclude that, hey, what's this point right here? What's this point? It's represented in the xy plane, right? This point is represented by cosine pi over 3, and y is our sine of pi over 3. So y is always sine, and cosine is always the x, right? Because you can slide this adjacent, right? Adjacent. This is represented by x. Adjacent sides will be slide over here, and this is our x, and this is our y, which is our value right here. It's sine value right over here, right? So cosine is our x and sine is our y, right? Of any angle. You're gonna plug in your angle of choice, right? Sine theta, okay? And theta is the angle, okay? It's not the x in this case. But later, when we do the function, that will become the x. But this is the total different thing. This is just the beginning where we try to get the angle and represent this point, but we're using the unit circle, okay? And right over here we have the same, pretty much the same thing. We just plug in the theta, right? You have your formula right here. Plug in the theta. Our theta is pi over 6. Cosine pi over 6 and sine of pi over 6. So the angle will be the same because your unit circle, your ray comes over here, right? Starting from here, go over here. It's gonna stay the same. The hypotenuse, so to say, is gonna stay the same. Okay, and so that gives you what? What does that give you? So pi over 6 is 30 degree, cosine 30 degree, and sine 30 degree. For those who couldn't use the calculator, then you might use the special angle, right? So here, special angle, 30 degree, right? 30 degree. So right across 30 degrees is 1, and this is 2, and this is square root of 3. So your sine becomes 1 over 2. Your cosine becomes square root of 3 over 2, right? So you can see here your cosine and your sine, and you're done, right? And pi over 4 is 45 degrees. So imagine that. It's another special degree. You got your 45 and 45 on the first quadrant. The quadrants matter because probably in the future or in the next couple videos, we're gonna look at many triangles that are not on the first quadrant. So this is just, for example, is on the first quadrant, right? So first quadrant, you have positive and positive. But what if you have triangle here? Imagine that, right? You're gonna go with the sign of whether it's positive and negative. So for instance, the second quadrant is negative and positive, right? So you're gonna figure that one out. This is negative, of course, and this is what? Positive and negative, right? And so you have your 45 degree here because it's pi over 4, right? So 180 over 4, you get your 45, right? So 45 degree is a special angle again, which is 1 to 1 to 1 to square root of 2, right? And square root of 2 is our hypotenuse, okay? So let's just do this where you have a unit circle. So this is just the ratio that I'm indicating here. So we're gonna go to make this as our make it into unit circle, which is 1. In order to make this 1, you have to divide by square root of 2. That equals 1, right? And you have to divide this, the adjacent, by square root of 2 as well, by square root of 2 as well, right? Because it's a ratio, so you have to divide the same thing for all the parameters, right? So, and you're gonna translate this to the normal representation, which is you couldn't have the square root in your, this is irrational number, right? So irrational number, you have to make this, so times it by square root of 2, right? Your denominator and numerator, and that makes you what? 2 square root of 2 over 2. Okay? So there you go, you have your x and y now, because you make this into 1, so you don't have to worry about, you just have to know that cosine is the x and sine is the y, right? So cosine and sine will have the same thing, which is pi over 2, square root of 2 over 2, square root of 2 over 2, right? Square root of 2 over 2, okay? So this is your cosine, this is your sine. Okay, that's it. That concludes our first lesson. Hope we have a great day, and see you on the next one.